This is Teen Quest Live, where we create online conversations about youth culture, parenting, and issues facing youth workers in today's world. Our host, Mark Witt, has served as a pastor and youth pastor in multiple churches, and he's the founder and director of Teen Quest, a youth ministry that creates peak experiences for youth groups and teenagers through camping, events, missions, and evangelism. Welcome to Teen Quest Live.
Hi. Youth groups around the country are experiencing youth mission trips more than any time in history. Some parents are really behind their kids getting involved in mission trips, and others are very reluctant to even consider sending their kids on a mission trip. How do we get parents more involved in missions, and more importantly, allowing their teenager to experience short-term trips? My guest today is Mike Clements, youth pastor from Manassas Baptist Church in Manassas, Virginia, to talk about getting parents to support kids on mission trips. Mike, great having you on the program today. Tell us a little about your church, Manassas Baptist. Where are you? A little bit about you.
Well, strangely enough, we're in Manassas, Virginia, so that's probably why we call it Manassas
right.
Baptist.
And where's that?
Manassas is a bedroom community just outside of D.C. We're probably 25 miles out of D.C.
Okay.
Almost everybody in this town works in D.C., so it's a really fast-paced place. It's a very different atmosphere. For the last church I served was in North Carolina, so we're definitely not in Kansas anymore.
Mm. You sound like you are from the South. Where do you live originally?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta, Georgia.
And then just south of Raleigh, North Carolina. So I've been in the South pretty much all my life.
Now tell us about your church. How big is it? How big is the youth groups? And
we have we're an unusual church. We're basically two congregations on the same site. We have a traditional congregation and we have a contemporary congregation, both together. 700 and some odd members. Youth. I guess if I had to put my finger on it, I would say 95. We're going through a huge growth spurt right now because of some changes that we've made, and also certainly God has blessed us through those changes. So probably about 95 kids.
Wow, that's great. Now, you've been coming to the Teen Quest Ranch, your church, for a number of years.
Yes.
And good kids, good leaders. You guys are very blessed.
Thank you.
And tell us about your ministry. You've been there, you said 3 years.
Yes.
Great.
Well, you had introduced me as a youth pastor, and I guess for our purposes here, that'll do. Actually, I'm not the youth pastor. I'm the family pastor here. We don't have a youth pastor, and that's kind of on purpose, and that kind of fits in with where we're going as a church. I'm a strong believer that one of the most important factors in student ministry is consistency, is relationships that are built up over a long period of time with adults. And as you know, and everybody knows, the average youth pastor stay is 1.5 years. Then you go through a 6-month period of searching, and kids are just constantly, this idea that they have already, that nothing lasts forever, is just reinforced. And so what we do here is we concentrate on building teams of godly adults who work with the teenagers. They become the youth pastor in a sense. So my job here is to oversee the teams that work with the youth, that work with the children, that work with young adults, and that work with small groups. So it's a different, we're going for a different thing that probably most churches have gone for.
That's interesting because that kind of segues into what I want to talk about today, and that's getting parents involved in missions more particularly. And when parents are behind your ministry, it makes it so much easier to work with the kids. Would you agree with that?
There's no doubt about that. In fact, when they're not involved, it's like walking through quicksand. You'll sink pretty quickly. Some of the predecessors here had not been open to parental involvement in the ministry, in the student ministry here, and it brought on some big problems. We involve parents everything that we can involve them in, and it makes all the difference in the world. Missions, probably more than anything else. Our thrust as a church right now is family mission trips rather than large group mission trips.
All right. Why do you suppose in many churches the parents are not on board with missions? There's a lot of churches that can't get the parents interested at all.
You know, that's a good question. I can't say. I haven't done a lot of reading about that. I'm not really sure what the biggest reasons would be. My suspicion would be that things are so fast-paced today that parents, it's a drop-off world where they drop their kids off at your door and sometimes don't ask any questions at all about what you're going to do. Other times they'll ask a million questions and in the end still end up letting their kids do things. But I think parents are very, very busy. They want to know that their kids are safe. A mission trip kind of has a big question mark to it because we sell mission trips as being a great adventure, that it's you're going into a place that you don't know anything about, ministering to people that you don't know anything about, really. And so there's a lot of things that you just can't tell parents that would ease them and make them want to be a part of what you're doing. I think the more information that you give parents about where you're going and why you're going there, that's everything.
Well, I find it interesting what you're telling me about family mission trips, because apparently when you take the parents with the kids, then obviously they feel more connected. But I can't imagine teenagers wanting their parents to go on a mission trip with them. How do you deal with that?
Well, it's a whole different groove. You've got a youth group mission trip. Probably they wouldn't want their parents going with them, and I understand that. That's a cool thing. And because you're going away for a week, a long distance away, maybe even overseas, and they're not so sure that that's a good idea to have their parents with them. What we do with our family mission trips is they're you know, at the most 2 to 3 hours away. The family goes together for the whole weekend. Several families may go together for a whole weekend. And I want to tell you real quickly, the reason that we emphasize that is based on some of the findings of Barna about, you know, if you want to look at the lives of kids who continue to be fully devoted followers of Christ after they've graduated from high school, after they've gone on to college, instead of walking away from the church, one of the top 3 factors for kids who have continued on in the faith, in fact, the number 1 factor, according to Barna, is that at some point they did mission activities with their family, not with their youth group, but with their family.
Well, that's an interesting concept. And you said you do this on weekends. You go several hours away.
Yes.
And it does work. I mean, parents and kids, they do like it. I mean, they do feel it works.
Yeah, because I think every parent learns pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. You can tell your kids what's important to you, and that may mean something and it may mean nothing, because unfortunately the things that look, I tell my daughter that it's very important to drive safely, but then she sees me run a traffic light or something like that.
Right.
But when a teenager sees their parents out on the mission field, out doing work, side by side with them, it says to them, this is really important to my parents. They must really believe in this Jesus thing. This must not be one of those wink, wink Santa Claus kind of things. So it becomes very important to them. It has a extra significance to them.
Now, if a teen's parents is not involved and does not go on these trips, will you still take teenagers?
Yeah, yeah. They kind of attach themselves to another family.
Another family.
And that's not been a big problem because we have a lot of families wanting to go. And in fact, the next step in what we're doing here is realizing that a lot of families can't go away for a weekend like that. We're trying to have a bulletin board with mission opportunities for families for a Saturday. You know, something that locally, say an elderly person who their house is badly in need of repairs that a family might be able to do, or even the yard may need raking and they can't afford to have it done. So we just present opportunities to families to go out and work together for the day. And you'd be surprised how that sets the tone for a family being supportive of their kids when their kids go off on a mission trip without them.
Mike, I'm sure in the past this is not the way the church did mission trips. I'm sure you probably did it very traditional, like taking kids and so forth.
Right.
How did that change? Was it change when you came to the church and you said we're gonna make a difference here?
Well, yeah, I'm a pretty opinionated person, I guess, and I'm not. One thing I've noticed over the years about mission trips, and you can make a case against what I'm saying probably. I'm not sure we're ever really clear about why we're doing a mission trip. Why are we going where we're going? And I think that we get confused about that sometimes. We don't make our mission clear. Here's a for example, one of the churches that I've served at, they sent a group of men to Alaska. It cost $1,600 a person to go to Alaska to paint a church in Alaska. Now, certainly it was a good experience for the men that went, and it was a good experience for the church that got painted. But I think in the world that we're living in now, we look at Alaska and we say they have a 10% plus unemployment rate. Wouldn't it be cool if churches could band together, raise money, send it to that church? Say, go out in your community, hire unemployed people to paint your church, be a blessing to them. You know, it'll bring them into your church in an unusual way. So it's a different kind of way of looking at missions. And it just made me start thinking, all right, in our economy, especially here, as much of money as people seem to have, they don't seem to have money for, you know, $1,000 mission trip or something like that. I'm not really so interested in putting together a mission trip that I can only take 7 kids on or 8 kids. I've done a lot of mission trips in Vermont where we can take almost our whole youth group for about $150 to $170 a person.
Right.
And do some pretty good things there, and go into a place that not many people are going. It's not a cottage industry there. So I think for missions, we have to be purposeful about why we're doing it. We have to make it accessible to people, and just kind of stop this idea of we're just going to run into a place not really knowing what we're going to do and where we're going to be and why we're going to do it.
Would you take your families on a mission trip overseas?
Absolutely. If I haven't, maybe that's one of the next steps. Just you saying that makes me think that would be a really cool idea. That would be a harder sell, I think, because
Right.
You know, with a local mission trip, you can have some sort of control over when that family gets there. They know exactly where they're going to be going. There's a contact person that's going to show them what their task is. Sometimes overseas, that's a little bit harder, but yeah, that's a possibility. Yeah, I would do that.
I want to talk about what do you say to parents to get them interested in this kind of thing? What do you tell them to get them and their families to do this? Are they mostly church families, or are you reaching out to community families?
Well, we do reach out to community families, but find that it's mostly church families who will go on the mission trips. What we try to do is to tell them the benefits to their family and to the spiritual formation of their children, for them to go together on a mission trip. It's a very important selling point to get them to realize that when I do this, not only am I doing a kingdom of God kind of thing, I'm building my family, and I'm kind of giving my kids some tools to work with spiritually that maybe will predict the direction that they'll go in.
That's awesome. Well, I'm fascinated by your idea. A very revolutionary idea to take whole families on these trips. You know, I often say that if I were starting as a youth pastor in a brand new church, I think I would spend the first year just working with parents. I mean, I'd spend some time with the kids, but I would spend probably more time working with the parents that first year than even the kids. Would you agree with that?
Totally agree with you. And theoretically, that's what I'm all about. In practice, it's harder to do that. You find yourself, the kids are around, so you find yourself spending the more time with them. However, the whole reason that I'm here is to try to change the culture within this church away from being totally focused on success and wealth for their kids, and being more focused, well, not only success and wealth, but athletics and academics and all those things that people are preoccupied with, and just say to them, you know, we are here to help you as parents to strategize your kids' spiritual formation. You're not going to get where you want to go without a plan. It's not going to, you know, statistically, most of the time, if you don't sow the seeds, nothing's going to spring up. So we try to get parents really involved in what their kids are doing, and even to the point of sending things home with the children, you know, for talking points around the dinner table, and the same with teenagers, to the point where we get parents and kids talking. They are so much better disciplers than we are. When kids look at their parents and see that it really means something to them, oh my gosh, it's more important than 5 years of what we can do.
Lastly, I want you to speak to the youth leader right now who says, you know, maybe he's starting as a young guy and he's starting in the church, and the kids love him, and he's a guru, and they're all hanging around him, and he wants to take this exciting mission trip and wants to get involved in missions, and he's just struggling because the parents are just not behind him. What do you say to this young youth pastor?
I would say use every resource you have at your side. Number one, make sure that the leaders of your church are sold on this, to the point to where your senior pastor will get up in the pulpit and talk about how important this mission trip is. Not just because it's a mission trip, but that we're all called into missions. For you to be able to sell to people this idea that you know, churches are equipping places, that we are not, we hear this phrase so often, I just wasn't fed at that church. Well, it's not our goal to feed people. It's our goal to teach people to feed themselves. And so we provide opportunities, we provide experiences that they can be involved in. And I just think, I would tell youth pastors, try to move away from being the feeder of your teens, and teach them how to feed themselves, and teach their families how important it is for the family to feed themselves.
We're talking to Mike Clements from Manassas Baptist Church in Manassas, Virginia, and I think some of the ideas you're presenting today are pretty exciting. I'd like to hear more about some of the results that you're seeing in the future as you go out and expand this idea. Totally different idea in missions. Thank you so much for your time with us today, and
I enjoyed it.
And We appreciate speaking with us. This is Mark Witt. Have a great day.
Hey, thanks for joining us today on TeenQuest Live with Mark Witt. You know, the discussion is just starting. You can visit our website and leave your comments and thoughts about this topic. Find us online at teenquest.org. That's teenquest.org. And we'll see you next time on TeenQuest Live.